Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, one and all. It's actually not an Australian accent. I've been told it's from Brooklyn. Surprisingly to both me and those that I mentioned this to. I've had the pleasure of enjoying the last 2 months of my stay here in the United States. I'm honored to be amongst you today, and I want to thank each and every one of the presenters, the panelists, the moderators, and of course the guests, but in particular the organizers, be it GSU, University of Maryland, the Rumi Club, and of course my colleagues at the Rumi Forum Maryland chapter. I have both the honor as well as the responsibility, threefold somewhat, in regards to the themes discussed today. I'm involved with the Rumi Forum. Many of the questions revolved around Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi. And in an essence, there is a great demand for the love of Rumi, and we see this through one particular statistic that I was very surprised to find out a few years ago, that the most well-read poems or the most sold books of poetry in the United States are the works of Rumi. So that there is this underlying current of a thirst for those that are aspiring to learn of this love. So there is this thirst in the United States, and may I broaden, in the wider world community, that is something missing in the lives of individuals, of families, that allows Rumi, 1300 years on, 2 years ago, his death, may I correct that, his death is 800 years on. It was celebrated throughout the world, the 800th year passing away of Rumi. His Shebi Arus, even his death signifies love, because it is, and Shebi Arus translates, it's commemorated every year around the 17th of December, where a lot of people look at death as a departure. Shebi Arus translates as wedding with eternity. It was his night that he looked forward to. Death was a union for Rumi. So this is a great message that we see is being sought by Americans. I have both the honor of, as I've mentioned, of Rumi, as well as the responsibility, which makes it difficult for me to speak on behalf of. I also have the honor of being the only institute that Mr. Fethullah Gulen, commonly known by those close to him as Hoja Effendi, is the honorary president of. He's the honorary president of the Rumi Forum. And in regards to one aspect, if I may address a question, I think it's quite pertinent in understanding Gulen's approach, the question of Sufism. Of course, there's many themes that have been covered today, but I would allude those that have an interest to read a specific article written by Professor Dr. Zeki Sarıtoprak, titled Fethullah Gulen, A Sufi in His Own Way, for those that would like to understand. But the illusion, or the alluding by, I should say, by many of the speakers, one difference is the social context and the emphasis on action. And we see this on a global scale, and I quoted a few countries the other night, whether it's in New Zealand or Norway or Nigeria or Nepal. We have those that have been inspired by Gulen's message to take it to all types of people, irrespective of background and irrespective of faith. And I think that's very important. There are different ways of reaching different people. The rhetoric of religion will bring those people that have that commonality. But our responsibility, as one person asked, and in regards to those that have no faith, have lapsed faith, have nominal faith, no faith, or who question faith, then our responsibility with these people, and our commonality is our responsibility to coming generations. Thank you very much. Dr. Kim? Dr. Burke? Dr. Stewart? Dr. Weltenberg? Dr. Ahmed? Ambassador Newton?
Ambassador Newton, if you could so honor us and give us some closing remarks for the day, we would greatly appreciate that.
A couple of notes. Too old to learn, because I did learn some interesting things today, and very worthwhile things. And reminded me of many thoughts I've had myself and tried to figure out. One very good question: why do Muslims get so little credit, moderate Muslims? And it's obviously on two sides. One is that you know, there's a saying in the media: if it bleeds, it leads. And so things like 139 was it cleric signing a very commendable letter don't get much attention. There's also an interesting comment I heard recently that heard of recently by a very well-known media person who said the worst thing that happened to the media in the United States in news was 60 Minutes. Because in the beginning, CBS, from the very beginning with Edward R. Murrow, the idea was that news would not make a profit and entertainment would cover the costs. But 60 Minutes showed that news could make a nice profit, and now everybody is chasing profits with the news. On the other side, one has to remember, and I know the Arab world, that there isn't much freedom of expression still, and there hasn't been much intellectual vigor on the Muslim side in the Arab world. But you could also have to think that someone who is, I think, a very profound thinker, Tariq Ramadan, is unable to do it in the Muslim world. He unfortunately wasn't able to come to the United States, but he now lives in France, where he can express his opinions. One other thing I would also like to say is that we've seen very clearly that intolerance and injustice go together, because what we think of as religious conflicts are also obviously also questions of identity politics, and the people on top keeping the people on the bottom on the bottom. One could think of Lebanon, think of Northern Ireland, whatever. But as long as people on the top want to use intolerance as a measure to keep people down,